It's Harold Edwards. I'm a local person here. Lived here all my life in this area. My family settled here in 1782. So as you can imagine, we have a lot of stories passed down. Tonight we're going to do a history ghost walk. We're going to tell some history. We're going to talk about some, I don't break my neck here. We're going to talk about some ghosts. We're going to tell some stories. So we hope you enjoy it. Now, let me tell you a little bit about my style so you hopefully feel more comfortable. I don't like to give lectures. I don't like to just start telling stuff. I like to know what's on your mind, okay? So as we're going through this and I tell these stories, please feel free. Number one, if I say something that doesn't make sense to you, just stop me. Hey, you know, what do you mean by that? Or whatever. I don't mind at all. I really like it, okay? Also, if you have anything that you'd like to add, please feel free to. This is for your enjoyment, okay? I'm a volunteer. The money that you paid for your tickets tonight goes to our Main Street project, okay? So we appreciate you being here. We thank you for coming, and we hope you're going to enjoy yourself tonight. This is a larger group than we normally have. We had a person that had to cancel as one of the tour guides, so hopefully this will work out okay. It's okay. We just have to stay close. Can everybody hear me okay? Can you hear me? Okay. Number one thing is safety. Guys, we got to talk a little bit about that. We're going to be walking through terrain. We're going to be walking streets that have potholes and stuff. Please be careful. Watch your step. We don't want anybody to break an ankle or twist an ankle. We're going to go in 2 houses tonight. We're going to tell stories about those houses. We're also going to go down Merchants Row. We're going to talk about what happened there during the war. Perryville has been pretty much defined by a one-day event. And we all know what that day was. October the 8th, 1862, 2 huge armies clashed here. Changed this town forever. We would not have the stories we have today if that event hadn't happened. But I want to go on back in time. I want to go back a little bit. Now I want y'all to use your imagination with me. We got to remember that October the 8th, 1862 was the first thing that ever happened here. There's a lot of history before that. At one time, this was a pristine wilderness. No roads, no buildings, no towns, no noise, nothing. Perryville is the edge of the bluegrass. We have the knobs to our south. We have the bluegrass region to our north, and really, really good land. Early pioneers from Virginia, from the Carolinas, they came through the Cumberland Gap or they came down the Ohio River, came into this region. They knew land. Trust me, they knew good land. They knew that this region was really, really good soil. The limestone water, the abundance of good farmland, and the good timber is what brought them here. That's one of the reasons today we have the bourbon industry that's so prominent in Kentucky, because of the limestone water and the rich soil that grows the right grains that produce some of the best bourbon in the world. There was an Indian civilization, Native American civilization here long before there were any white people, as you know. There were the Paleo Indians were the earliest. And then we go to the Archaic period. And then we go to the Woodland period. And then the last culture was the Mississippian. And if you plow these fields today and walk these fields, you'll find artifacts from one of those cultures. Just about inevitably, any field you plow around here, if it rains on it, you can find it. So there's a rich history here. This was, by the Indians called us the dark and bloody ground. Anybody know why they called it that? It was a dark and bloody ground because this was the Indian hunting ground. They really, not any tribes really lived here. They came here and they left. They went north and went south. The Cherokee to our south, the Shawnee to our north. We have Delaware, Mingo, and many other tribes that used Kentucky as a hunting ground. So Highway 68 that you came in town from, if you came from Harrodsburg, that was a buffalo trace. The buffalo had traveled that route so much that it created a road which the pioneers used, which later turned into the road that we have today. So we have a rich history here long before civilization. And then the white people came. As they came over the mountains, people like James Harrod, Ben Logan, who founded Stanford. James Harrod founded Harrodsburg. We had Daniel Boone, Simon Kenton. We had all these early pioneers that were legendary people that we've all probably read about in our classes. This was a common area for them. All these people traversed right here in this area. This is also the site that you're standing on. The reason we're starting here is this is the oldest lot that I can tell you for sure in Perryville that had something. This was the first church. It was right here. It's called the Cumberland Church. And the pioneers built this as their first meeting house. It was actually non-denominational. Anybody could use it. It was used for many different things over the years. One of the stories about this church, they had a hanging tree in front of it, believe it or not. A lot of times, vigilantes took things into their own hands. And by the way, we'll talk about this murder later, but there was 2 men hung right there in the corner of where that lot would be in 1867. They were hung there because of a murder of a lady. We'll talk about later. So we have a rich pioneer history. We have a rich history of the civilization settlement here. Harbison's Fort was the first settlement here by James Harbison. We're going to talk more about that when we get down there. But this big event in 1862 changed everything. We don't think much about this area until October 8, 1862. We had 60,000 troops came into this little village of 800 people. We had about even numbers, almost 30,000 on each side. They clashed right out here north of town. It wasn't over water. Some people said it was over water. Bigger issue than that. It was for the control of Kentucky. The Confederate government troops had came in. They had installed a governor in Frankfort, Richard Hawes, and they were going to take control of Kentucky. Where President Lincoln and Don Carlos Buell had other ideas. So they had actually followed them into this area, Buell's army did, and they clashed out here starting about midnight on October the 7th, and it lasted all day October the 8th, and the Confederates retreated out the night of the 8th and the morning of the 9th toward Harrodsburg. It was a one-day event. There was 7,000 or 8,000 casualties here. And one of the things you need to know about Perryville is every house that was standing, every house, every barn, every building was used to house wounded soldiers. There was thousands of them. Some of them stayed here a year or two after the day to recuperate. Some of them died. Some of them were buried here. Some of them were never interned but were left out on the battlefield. One of the common problems back then was the hogs. They would take the rails, they would put the men's bodies in groups, and they would put rails around them to try to keep the hogs from them. It was a rough time to be alive. Every door in every house was taken off and used as a stretcher. The wood was broken, the furniture was broken for firewood, and was actually used to heat, to cook and to heat water and so forth. So this town suffered tremendously. When those troops left here, there was nothing left of Perryville. The houses were just shells, the food was gone, anything to eat, gone. So naturally, there was a place of a lot of suffering, So we have a lot of stories of people that suffered here. Many people died here. That is the root of a lot of paranormal activity. I can tell you my experiences here. One, I went out to the Russell House site, which is out off of Hayes Mays Road out here one night, and I took a camera, and it was dark, and I decided to see if these, what do you call those, orbs, I'm sorry, I lost it, or orbs. I wanted to see if that would happen. So I went out to the Russell House site, scene of heavy fighting, a lot of casualties, a lot of people that was taken care of in that house, and the thing just lit up. Come back 30 minutes later, take the pictures, and you'll see a few. But 2 or 3 of the pictures, it was just full of them. So that, they say, is a sign of paranormal activity. I was with the ghost hunters one time that came to Perryville. We were at the H.P. Bottom house, and they had a recording device. They set it on the table. They turned it on and started talking. Suffering, it said. Pain, suffering. Just kept repeating over and over. So yes, this is a place of a lot of trauma. So therefore we think that this has, by the way, been called one of the most haunted little towns in America because of this. The last ghost walk I did, they did capture some images in the window. So you guys, you might want to take some images. You might want to take some photographs. Feel free to do that. You might catch some orbs. If you do, if you'd like to share them with us, that would be great. Does anybody have any questions? Got any questions?